Good morning, Duke fans. My name is Hugh Strain, your host of the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast on SI. Today, we've got a heap of recruiting, bringing on Max Dorsey, recruiting insider for On SI, talking about five-star Duke basketball target Jordan Smith, an update on quarterback Darian Mensah, and a shocking turn of events as Duke star wide receiver Cooper Barkate has entered the NCAA transfer portal. So without further ado, we're going to bring Max Dorsey on, recruiting insider for On SI. Max, good to have you with us today.
Happy to be here, Hugh. Thank you for having me.
So we'll start off with Jordan Smith Jr., the number 2 overall prospect, according to the 247 Sports 2026 composite rankings. John Shire and his staff currently sit with the number 1 overall 2026 recruiting class. If that sticks, this would be the third season in a row where Shire & Co. Inc., the number 1 overall class. Jordan Smith, the number 1 combo guard in the class, number 2 overall player. He is down to deciding between Duke, Indiana, Georgetown, Syracuse, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Took his official visit to Duke to count down to craziness, then received a crystal ball prediction to land with the Blue Devils. However, as of late, it seems like Duke is losing the lead on Smith. Arkansas now viewed as a team heavily in the mix, as well as the other 4 schools still there. Max, what can you tell us on that?
Yeah, from my understanding, Hugh, for most of Smith's recruitment, this has been a battle between Duke and Arkansas. Those teams have kind of gone back and forth throughout his recruitment. And as you said, Duke had been the heavy favorite. And when Darren Rippey Jr. committed, there's been conflicting reports that that may have played a role in Arkansas's kind of late surge here. I don't know exactly what to believe there. I think it probably did play a small role. I don't think it's going to affect his final decision that much, but we have seen the Razorbacks kind of start to come back over Duke because, like, as you said, the Blue Devils did have that crystal ball. So I think it's going to come down to those two. He's made it clear that it's going to be a decision that happens at some point between February and April is when he's planning on making his decision. So I think the Blue Devils are still in a strong position. He really likes the team. He likes the coaching staff. He has former teammates on the team. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna come down to those two schools.
Yeah. Travis Branham of 247 Sports reported on this a couple weeks ago when Arkansas began to become a team heavily in the mix and mentioned Rippey's commitment to Duke. Deron Rippey, the number 1 point guard in the class of 2026 out of Blair Academy in New Jersey. So he commits to the Blue Devils. And Branham reports that it does not seem to have an effect on Smith's recruitment. However, he takes his official visit to Arkansas, Smith does early in the fall, and Branham says it doesn't just go well, it could not have gone any better. So Duke now in a heated battle with Arkansas and with Rippey. Max, tell us a little bit about kind of what this commitment from Smith means for the program and what Smith can do to impact the team for the 2026-27 campaign.
Yeah, Smith's a terrific player. Obviously, he brings a lot to the table as a combo guard. Like you said, he can play a variety of roles for Duke. And we know the Blue Devils kind of like to play this positionless basketball. I think he fits really well into the scheme. He would just be a massive commitment overall. But like we said, and what we've talked about with Rippey's commitment is this isn't necessarily a need for the Blue Devils anymore. Obviously, it's a welcome addition. He would be a wonderful addition to the class, but this isn't something that the Blue Devils are necessarily in desperate need of. Like you've mentioned before, this is the number 1 class in the nation. Shire has done an excellent job on the recruiting trail. But yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player. There's no understating that.
Yeah, so Duke, number 1 overall class. They've sealed commitment so far from 5-star forwards Cameron Williams and Bryson Howard, as well as Rippey and Canadian 4-star 7-footer Maxime Meyer. So with Smith and this ultimate commitment, what I think is a really interesting part about this recruitment is Duke is not deep at the guard spot, the true guard spots this season. It's really only Caleb Foster and Caden Boozer as the true guards. There's a million wings on the roster, but not a lot of true guards. There's a very good chance that both Foster and Boozer are making their way to the NBA after the 2025-26 campaign. Sure, they're bringing in Rippey, the number 1 point guard in the class, but guard depth besides that could very well be in question. I think that's one of the most interesting storylines to follow with Smith's recruitment overall and why Duke sort of is really still pushing to land him even with the addition of Rippey.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so we'll bring it over to football. That's kind of the latest on Smith. We're still waiting his recruitment in a couple months. Duke and Arkansas seeming to be the schools to watch. Again, Smith down to 6 schools: Duke, Arkansas, Georgetown, Indiana, Kentucky, and Syracuse. So we'll bring it over to Mensah. And obviously one of the most interesting storylines, not only this season in college football, but really in the history of college athletics. The pod for January 22nd, we talked about the lawsuit between Duke and Mensah. Mensah signs a 2-year deal worth around $7.5 million with the Blue Devils after the 2024 campaign out of the portal from Tulane. That contract was set to expire on December 31st, 2026. Obviously, as most know at this point, Mensah enters the portal with Miami as the school to watch. Max, this is an ever-changing case. So many details are coming out really every minute. It's been super difficult to really stay on top of. What can you tell us on the latest?
Yeah, so this is, like you said, a very complex situation. But according to Yahoo Sports' Ross Dellinger, Duke is expected to let Mensah enter the portal. I don't know if he's officially entered yet, but the Blue Devils are going to allow him and abide by NCAA rules to enter the portal. However, they filed a temporary restraining order against him and their NIL rights over him, which prohibits him from transferring to another school or taking any other NIL contract from any other program until a February 2nd preliminary injunction meeting. So there's a lot of legal jargon here. But basically what this means is until February 2nd, while Mensah will be in the portal, he won't be able to transfer elsewhere. So Duke is doing their best at this point to do everything they can to try and retain him.
So yeah, going off of that, and wild details of that emerge after the hearing where Duke's TRO is originally denied. Mensah is able to enter the portal, as you just mentioned. He is in the portal currently, but cannot sign with a program. So it comes out after the TRO is officially denied that Michael Ofaluda, the Superior Court judge in Durham County, North Carolina, actually had ties to Duke University. He's a Duke basketball season ticket holder, and his wife, Linda Daniel, is a library staffer at Duke University. So he denies Duke's TRO, and Mensah, in the grand scheme of things, is allowed to enter the portal. However, so many details that we are all still trying to figure out. According to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, Darian Mensah was placed in the portal by Duke the night of January 21st, as Judge Ofaluda required, but he is blocked from going to another school. I think it's, fairly responsible for Duke to assume that Mensah will not be back with the program one way or another. I think it's really difficult for Duke to, really justify this, that they're keeping him here based on the contract, because the NCAA is very passionate about not calling the student athletes employees, and this contract kind of contradicts that. So I think for the sake of argument, let's assume that Mensah is gone. What are Duke's options in the portal right now, and where can they go to find his potential replacement?
Yeah, so there's 3 quarterbacks that I point to. One is already on the roster. It's Ari Patu, who they brought in from North Alabama earlier in the portal cycle. He was originally a 3-star recruit in the 2021 class, committed to Stanford, spent 3 years at Stanford before transferring to North Alabama at the start of the 2024 season. He suffered a season-ending injury there, and then only appeared and started in 5 games at North Alabama in 2025. He is now currently on the Duke roster. They signed him. So that's option number 1. Option number 2, Hugh, I know you wrote about this yesterday, is that the Blue Devils are currently hosting Walker Eget, the San Jose State transfer quarterback, on a visit. He's started the last 2 years for the Spartans, throwing for over 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 19 interceptions. So that's, I think, the Blue Devils' primary portal target. If they can land Eget, that would be ideal for them, and I think he would likely be the starter heading into 2026. And then the last option, and there hasn't been a lot of ties between Duke and this guy, but it's Emory Williams. If they wanted to do the quarterback swap with Miami, Emory Williams, Miami's backup quarterback, entered the portal after the national championship game. He's thrown for 813 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions across 12 games in 3 years with the Hurricanes. I think that could be a guy that Duke could look to target as well.
So with this contract with Mensah, so how we're kind of following it is the NCAA, again, like we mentioned before, is very passionate that it is not pay to play. And Mensah's contract is not based off athletic performance. It's an NIL deal in his name, image, and likeness, but it does not depend on his performance on the field. And I think the most intriguing argument for Mensah is the fact that Duke put this lawsuit in place at all contradicts that, because they are obviously suing him for leaving the football program, breaching the details of that contract. So, Max, tell us a little about, if Mensah ultimately leaves the program, how does this affect Duke in 2026 after expectations from winning the conference title game? How does this set them back?
I mean, I think this is going to be kind of, the case of college football if Mensah ends up leaving. Miami is the ideal location. So not only is he leaving Duke, but he's transferring to an ACC rival. And this kind of highlights everything wrong with college football at the moment, kind of the lawlessness and the structurelessness of the sport. Because Duke, like you said, they're coming off a terrific season. They're ACC champions. Mensah, in my opinion, I know he was second team All ACC. I thought he was the best quarterback in the conference last year. And you head into after the season, you're heading into 2026 with a guy that you think legitimately could win the Heisman Trophy next season. And now, like you said, we're operating under the belief that it's going to be really, really hard for Duke to retain him. And if he leaves and goes to a conference rival, that's really going to hurt Duke. And not only does it hurt Duke, but not only does it hurt Duke in the sense they're losing Mensah, but you also have to remember that this is a team that lost their backup quarterback. Henry Boleyn transferred out of the program, operating under the belief that Mensah was going to return in 2026. So they lose their top two guys at the position. The offense is going to be kind of in shambles, and now they're scrambling, going after, some additional quarterback help through the portal.
Yeah, Henry Boleyn ultimately committed to Missouri State out of the portal. He is gone from the program. Max, you mentioned that Mensah likely heading to ACC rival Miami. Breaking news late last night out of the transfer portal. Not only is Duke losing star quarterback Darian Mensah, star wide receiver Cooper Barkate has entered the transfer portal. And not only that, but Miami is in fact the school to watch for his services. Barkate spent 3 seasons at Harvard, transferred to Duke after the 2024 campaign, second in the ACC in receiving yards, second in the ACC in receiving touchdowns, became the first Duke receiver to eclipse 1,000 receiving yards since Jameson Crowder in 2014. Max, what the heck is going on with Duke football? Give us the latest on Barkate.
Yeah, I think that graphic that Duke posted a couple of weeks ago is kind of going to live in infamy, where it was highlighting their 3 guys heading into 2026. Obviously, Mensah at quarterback, Shepard at running back, and Barkate at wide receiver. It looked like this offense was going to be stacked at all 3 of those positions. And like you said, Barkate was easily not only the most productive, but the best wide receiver and the most reliable option on Duke's offense last year. And now all of a sudden, with all the Mensah chaos going on, you add in another loss for the Blue Devils. Me and you were talking about this before, Hugh. The portal did officially close on the 2nd. So somehow Barkate was able to enter. We'll see if there's any developments further on that and whether he will officially be able to enter. But if it is, and it's obviously looking that way, if Duke does lose him, that's just another hit to an already horrible week for the Blue Devils.
I mean, you really could argue, I can't think of literally a worse situation that could have happened to Duke over the last, week and a half or so. And you mentioned the kind of lawlessness of the state of college football and college athletics altogether that we're currently in. Not only was Duke reported to probably be bringing back their kind of 3-headed monster on offense in Barkate, Mensah, and running back Nate Shepard, who really broke onto the scene in 2025. The program had actively re-signed all of these guys. And obviously, when you re-sign players like that, that leads you to not really put extreme effort into the portal, specifically at the quarterback spot, because you only start one, because you physically re-signed those guys. You expect them to be back. And just like that, they're gone. And it's as simple as that, for at least seemingly, for these guys to just say, okay, never mind, I'm actually going to hit the portal. And I think it speaks to kind of the powerlessness of a lot of power conference schools, because you see schools like Miami just resetting the market, and there's really nothing Duke can do about it. So, Max, I think in kind of the state of where we are with the transfer portal, it's really just putting college football on its heels, and it's making life so difficult for, a power conference team, but not a storied college football program like Duke, to succeed in the long term.
Yeah, I think this is, we've talked about it for a while now. This is the problem with college football. You have a team like Duke who like we've said, is coming off probably one of the better seasons in program history. Everyone thinks of Duke, they think basketball school, but as a football program, they are fresh off an ACC championship. Like we've talked about, they had a lot of returning talent. This was a team for fans to be excited about. In the NIL era, we've seen other, smaller schools, look at Indiana, be able to succeed under NIL. But if you're in a position where you can't retain your best players, and we see it at the group of 6 level all the time, where, the best quarterback at Memphis is leaving every year, and the best wide receiver at North Texas is leaving every year. If you can't retain your best players, there's no way to be competitive on a year in and year out basis. It's just, it's impossible to do. So when you have a Miami coming in and offering, they paid Carson back north of $4 million last year for just one season. God knows what their offer behind the scenes to Mensah is. That's a really difficult position to be in if you're Duke.
Yeah, so that's the latest on Mensah. That's the latest on Barcade. Absolute chaos going on in the Duke football program at this point in time. Star running back Nate Shepard is still with the Blue Devils. Again, who knows what's to happen at this point. Miami now reported to be sniping Duke star quarterback Darian Mensah and star wide receiver Cooper Barcade. Max, it's very fresh, but do you have any updates on potential receiver options in the portal that Duke could go after? Again, this just happened a couple of hours ago when we're recording this, so very fresh.
Yeah, I looked this morning, and options are obviously limited at this point. The portal opened on January 2nd. It's been closed for nearly a week now. Obviously, there's still some movement, but officially closed for nearly a week now. The Duke Blue Devils did bring in 2 wide receivers that I did like out of the portal. They brought in Javin Nicholas from Charlotte, and they brought in Jared Richardson from Yale. I think both those guys will be able to be productive options in the offense next year, but you can't replace a Barcade and what he was able to accomplish for the Blue Devils in 2025.
That's the latest on Duke recruiting so far. Jordan Smith recruitment and ultimate commitment mulling. Chaos going around in the Duke football program. Max, we appreciate you being on the show, and we'll see you back every Friday morning.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Hugh.
That's going to do it for us here on the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast. Make sure to check out si.com/college/Duke for everything latest to date on the Duke Blue Devils. We appreciate you viewing and appreciate you being here every day. My name is Hugh Strain, your host, and I'll see you tomorrow.